Hey guys, tonight we slip into the sleepy warmth of ancient Greece, where soft sea breezes hum through olive groves and columns glow in the fading light of another golden day. The stone courtyards are warm beneath your bare feet, and in the distance, you can almost hear the lazy hum of bees and the clatter of a bored satyr playing dice. It's the perfect evening to unwind, except tonight you're being dragged into one of the most absurd celestial dramas never told. You're about to trail the queen of the gods herself, Hera, radiant, regal, and catastrophically petty, as she attempts the impossible, making cucumbers sacred. That's right, cucumbers. Those humble, crunchy salad passengers. And let's just say you probably won't survive this without rolling your eyes at least once. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time down below. I'd love to know where and when you're joining me from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge along the dusty marble path that winds behind the gleaming halls of Mount Olympus, trying not to trip over a discarded lyre string or one of Hermes' forgotten sandals. The divine courtyard smells faintly of roasted figs, crushed lavender, and the unmistakable sharp tang of ambrosia left out too long in the sun. Mount Olympus, despite what you've heard, is not all glowing halos and divine harmony. It's more like a sprawling summer camp for hyperdramatic immortals with trust issues and zero impulse control. And this afternoon, just after the sun god Apollo finished tuning his lyre for the 7th time that hour, the gods are deep in yet another argument, this time about shrubbery. You duck as a pomegranate narrowly misses your head, flung with considerable disdain by Artemis in a fit of landscaping rage. Apparently, Dionysus wanted to plant ivy around the columns again, because he thinks it looks mysterious. And Athena responded by threatening to release owls into his wine cellar. You inch past a squabble over who gets to redesign the courtyard fountain. Poseidon thinks the fish should sing. And then there she is, Hera, radiant, towering, slightly terrifying. She's perched on a stone bench that somehow stayed immaculately clean despite centuries of godly drama. Her gown flows like molten pearl, her hair pinned up in a style so elaborate it's probably supported by divine intervention. Her expression, however, is pure midweek exasperation. She watches the other gods argue over Flora with the haunted look of a mother whose children just discovered glitter glue. You feel a breeze as Hebe, Hera's daughter and official cupbearer of Olympus, glides by holding an amphora of lukewarm nectar and a bowl of what appear to be cucumbers. Not olives, not grapes, cucumbers. You blink. That, it turns out, is how it begins. At first, it's subtle. Hera casually crunches one while eyeing a nearby satyr suspiciously. The sound echoes with divine resonance. The courtyard falls briefly silent, broken only by the crisp, oddly refreshing snap. Even Zeus pauses in the middle of dramatically smiting a caterpillar off his toga. A cucumber? Hera? Crunching? You don't know it yet, but this tiny act, this crunchy bite of vegetal defiance, is the butterfly wing beat that will launch one of Olympus's most bizarre spiritual experiments. You follow Hera as she stalks off into her private garden. A curious place, this one not open to the rest of the gods. It's quieter here, sheltered, somewhere between overgrown and obsessively curated. Vines twist up marble trellises, and everything smells a little too aggressively like rosemary. There's a shaded alcove, and in the center, a modest little cucumber patch. Now here's your historical fact. Ancient Greeks didn't just eat cucumbers. They believed them to have cooling, medicinal properties. They were used to treat fevers, bad tempers, and what one very bored ancient physician called internal heat of the spleen. Hera, it seems, has taken this ancient folk wisdom a little too literally. She circles the patch slowly, bends down, sniffs, plucks one, holds it to the light. It's ridiculous. It's just a cucumber. And yet, there's something sacred about the way she turns it in her hand. Reverent, like it's a divine relic, which, in her mind, it is now. Historians still argue whether Hera's fascination with cucumbers began as a form of cosmic protest or sheer boredom. Some point to the timeline of Zeus's most recent affair, possibly with a particularly flirtatious sea nymph named Calypsaria, and suggest Hera needed a distraction. Others think she was simply tired of grapes getting all the mythological attention. Either way, you watch as she commands a nearby dryad to build a tiny altar next to the cucumber vines. The dryad blinks again, then nods and scuttles off to find sacrificial olive oil. From that moment on, the cucumber is no longer just a vegetable. It's Hera's secret weapon, her spiritual symbol, her chlorophyll-coated middle finger to the rest of Olympus. You watch in fascination as she spends the afternoon whispering to the cucumbers. Not praying, whispering, like a woman venting to an old friend who happens to be green, bumpy, and incapable of offering legal advice. The next day, things escalate. You find yourself at a divine brunch. Don't ask. It's mostly symbolic foods and passive-aggressive commentary. and the cucumbers are everywhere. In the salads, sliced into drinks, even carved into delicate flower shapes and floated in bowls of scented water. Hera beams every time someone bites into one, like she's personally converting them to the cult of cool refreshment. Zeus, of course, doesn't notice at first. He's too busy monologuing about cloud density and whether lightning should be rebranded as sky smiting. But by sunset, he begins to catch on. And that's when you feel the tension rise like summer heat from marble tiles. There's a strange little moment when you pass through the Hall of Mists and see Hera muttering into a bowl of sliced cucumbers. She's sprinkling them with something, salt, maybe? And humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like the funeral dirge for one of Zeus's mistresses. You back away slowly, and just when you think it can't get weirder, it does. The next morning, Hera sends a message to the high priest of her temple in Argos. She wants him to begin experimental sanctification of cucumbers. You watch the poor man blink at the tablet like it's written in crab language. But orders are orders. This is where the human side of the absurdity begins. The priest, whom we'll call Euphranios because his actual name has been lost to overly damp scrolls, begins by placing a cucumber on the temple's main altar. Just one, nestled in gold leaf. People are confused. Is it a relic? An offering? Someone's lunch? But that doesn't matter to Hera. To her, it's progress. By now, you've noticed that the garden behind Hera's quarters has tripled in size. The cucumber patch is thriving. She's hired 2 satyrs and a retired nymph as full-time gourd whisperers. You once caught her serenading a particularly symmetrical cucumber while dabbing its skin with rosewater. But deep beneath the silliness is a quiet question. Why cucumbers? Why now? Some argue that cucumbers, with their coolness and fertility symbolism, offered Hera a way to reclaim agency. Her own sacred object, separate from Zeus's thunderbolts or Athena's owls. Others think it was a divine joke that got out of hand. Whatever the truth, you now find yourself standing at the edge of the sacred cucumber garden, listening to a priest chant praises to the crunchy green of Hera's favor. You try not to laugh. You fail. But you also feel the shift. This is how myths begin. Not with fire or thunder, but with whispers and ridiculous vegetables. The courtyard is calm again. Hera is smiling. Somewhere, a new cult is taking root. And cucumbers? They're just getting started. It's 2 weeks later when the trouble really starts. You wake up one morning in your guest room. A small, over-decorated chamber with curtains that insist on billowing dramatically even when there's no wind, and find a scroll nailed to your door. Not pinned, nailed, with a golden hairpin shaped like a cucumber. It's from Hera. You unroll the parchment carefully. The message is written in her signature sweeping script, fragrant with hints of lavender and basil, and reads, "We must speak. Immediately. Bring nothing, especially no olives." That last line is underlined. Twice. You throw on your toga, sidestep a snoring satyr in the hallway, and sprint across Olympus toward Hera's garden. You find her pacing the cucumber rows like a general surveying her troops. Her face is tight, controlled. She barely acknowledges you as she flicks a cucumber with one finger and mutters, "Too soft. Treasonous." You wait. Finally, she turns. They're trying to interfere. Who? You ask, still unsure if you're dreaming or just extremely dehydrated. The others, Hera hisses. Zeus, Athena, Aphrodite. The whole crunchy little cabal of mediocrity. You blink. They think it's funny, she snaps. They say it's a phase, a mid-eternity crisis. Aphrodite actually offered me an herbal clarity facial and a spa coupon. A spa coupon. As if I'm some insecure river goddess with a mold problem. You nod cautiously, hoping that's the correct emotional response. But Hera's not finished. They don't understand, she says, voice suddenly hushed, as though the cucumbers themselves are listening. They've forgotten what it means to build something sacred, something fresh, something green. You're not sure whether to agree or to recommend professional help. But Hera's face is luminous now, eyes lit with divine conviction. We must act. If they won't recognize the sanctity of my harvest willingly, then we must persuade them. Diplomatically, of course, unless that fails. You've been around the gods long enough to know that when diplomacy is mentioned, someone's usually getting turned into a newt. Later that afternoon, you find yourself helping transport sacred cucumbers, each wrapped in silk and blessed with a drop of ambrosia, to the High Council chamber. This is not what you signed up for. The chamber is an echoing hall of mirrors and marble, usually reserved for serious divine matters like wars, cosmic rebalancing, and arguments over the correct pronunciation of Mnemosyne. But today, it's been repurposed into the site of the first official cucumber convocation. You sit at the edge, trying not to make eye contact with any god higher than Demeter, who is gently weeping over a particularly elegant cucumber slice. Zeus, lounging atop a cloud-like throne, looks mildly amused. Athena appears skeptical. Dionysus has already eaten 2 of the ceremonial cucumbers, claiming he thought they were appetizers. Hera rises. She delivers a speech that is equal parts thunderous declaration and botanical sermon. She speaks of resilience, of fertility, of balance, of how cucumbers, unassuming though they may be, represent a quiet strength, a cool defiance in the heat of chaos. She quotes obscure oracles. She recites crop yields. She invokes a prophecy no one has ever heard of but everyone is too polite to question. The hall is silent. Then Zeus snorts. He tries to hide it with a cough, but the damage is done. Hera freezes mid-sentence. Her jaw tightens. Somewhere behind her, a cucumber splits open dramatically, as if in protest. "You laugh," she says quietly. "You mock my offering." Zeus opens his mouth. "No," Hera continues, raising a hand. "You always do this. I create, you destroy. I nurture, you seduce. I plant cucumbers and you plant bastards. Is there nothing sacred to you that you did not take first? Now it's very quiet. Even the breeze has stopped moving. You glance at Dionysus. He is slowly sliding a cucumber spear under his toga, as if hoping to escape unnoticed. Zeus sighs. "Hera, my love." "No," she says again, louder this time. "If none of you will honor this green gift, then I will find those who will." She snaps her fingers. The floor shakes. Vines explode from the ground, twisting, reaching, curling around the columns with verdant hunger. They climb the walls. They bloom in seconds. And in the center of it all, rising like a crown from the marble, is the largest cucumber you've ever seen. Easily the size of a small cow, glowing faintly, smelling of mint and divine judgment. The gods are frozen. Even Hades, who arrived late and smells faintly of brimstone and regret, takes a step back. "I declare this day," Hera booms, "the founding of the holy order of the sacred vine. And you," she points directly at you, "are now its first acolyte." You look down. In your hands is a ceremonial robe made entirely of cucumber peels. Still damp. There is no escape. Welcome to the world's first cucumber cult. The weeks that follow are a blur. You are tasked with blessing new cucumber vines in the name of Hera. You chant the litany of the crunch every morning. You memorize a prayer in which the words firmness, green glory, and seed of justice appear more times than you're comfortable with. And slowly, terrifyingly, it catches on. Villagers below Olympus begin offering cucumbers at shrines. A small temple appears in Thebes with a gourd-shaped altar. A minor prophet dreams of a great flood, a single cucumber floating to safety on a raft of mint leaves. Even a few centaurs convert after seeing Hera appear in a vision holding a cucumber staff wreathed in time. You, however, have had enough. One night, you sneak back into the sacred garden, past the snoozing gourd whisperers, and pluck one unblessed cucumber from the vine. You eat it raw. No ceremony. No oil. Just one bite of rebellion. Tastes fine. And for the first time in weeks, you feel human again. The next morning, Hera says nothing. But you notice one of the vines drooping in what you swear is disapproval. You realize you can't escape. Not yet. Because when gods get bored, they make temples. But when Hera gets bored, she starts a movement. And cucumbers? They're not going anywhere. You are now several months into your reluctant role as cucumber acolyte. By now, you've grown used to the morning rituals. Rubbing sacred cucumber oil on your temples, whispering blessings to the dew-drenched vines, and avoiding eye contact with the high priest of the third gourd, a former tax collector who once claimed a cucumber spoke to him in a dream. His breath smells like pickles. All the time, Olympus has changed. Where once there were laurel wreaths and gold-plated laurels, now there are cucumber garlands. Hera's influence spreads faster than grapevine gossip. Statues of her, cucumber in hand, now outnumber statues of Athena by 2 to 1. And that, as you soon learn, is a problem. Athena is not pleased. One afternoon, as you rest beneath a sprawling fig tree and pretend to meditate, you're actually just napping. A shadow falls over you. You open one eye and immediately wish you hadn't. Athena stands above you, arms crossed, expression somewhere between curiosity and condescension. "I need a word," she says flatly. You sit up, brushing leaf bits from your ceremonial robe. "Yes, wise one." "Don't do that," she sighs. "I'm not here for reverence. I'm here for answers." You gulp. This is a woman who invented both the owl and the war helmet. Athena crouches beside you. "Explain to me," she says, "why the Temple of Reason and Philosophy was just converted into a cucumber juicing center." You wince. "They said it improved focus. They also said Dionysus' new drink, the cuquake, would cure hiccups. It gave Ares temporary blindness." You try not to laugh. It's not polite. Athena narrows her eyes. "This isn't about cucumbers. It's about power." Hera's asserting herself, again, and dragging mortals into her drama. This ends badly. It always does. Remember the peacock incident? You do. Vividly. No one forgets being dive-bombed by a bird with divine grudges. Athena leans closer. So here's what I propose. Sabotage. Quiet, elegant, entirely deniable sabotage. Nothing dramatic. Just a few inconvenient blights. A mildew outbreak. Maybe a slightly misleading sacred text. You blink. You want me to do it? She shrugs. You're already inside the cult. You're perfect. Plus, you look like you've been regretting your life choices for weeks. You can't argue with that. That night, you toss and turn on your cucumber moss mattress. You're not built for espionage. You're built for napping, mediocre harp playing, and quietly staying out of divine conflict. But Athena's words echo in your ears. This isn't about cucumbers anymore. It's about the balance of Olympus. So you begin small. The next morning, you accidentally leave a tray of cucumbers too long in the sun. A few go soft, suspiciously soft. During the evening blessing, you mutter a few of Athena's code phrases, like beware the rot beneath the skin, and firmness is not forever, into the ceremonial cucumber wax. The cult doesn't notice at first, but a week later the signs begin. A rogue fungus invades one of the smaller greenhouses. A shipment of sacred cucumbers arrives with unexpected blemishes. And worst of all, someone starts questioning the core doctrine. Are cucumbers fruits or vegetables? That last one nearly causes a schism. Hera calls an emergency session of the order. The debate lasts 3 days. You sit in the back, trying to disappear into your cucumber peel robe, as gods and mortals scream at each other about seed placement and culinary classification. Historians still argue whether this moment, the great Produce debate, was the true beginning of the cult's decline. But the real turning point is something far stranger. One afternoon, you're meditating, actually sleeping again, when a low growl stirs you awake. You open your eyes to find a creature watching you. It's a cucumber, but not. It has the skin of a cucumber, long and green, yes, but it moves, slithers, blinks. It has eyes. You scream. The creature darts into the bushes. You follow it because you're an idiot and stumble into a hidden grove you've never seen before. In the center is a pool, glowing faintly, and beside it, dozens of the same slithering cucumber creatures, all watching you. One of them speaks. Its voice is like leaves rustling in a cold wind. You have awakened the first seeds. We are older than Olympus, older than Hera, older than gods. You are, for lack of a better term, very confused. The creature continues. She tries to bind us, worship us, but cucumbers are wild, cunning, unruly. We do not serve. Then suddenly silence. The creatures vanish into the underbrush, leaving only the faintest smell of mint and panic. You run straight back to the temple. For 3 days you say nothing. What can you say? You've just met sentient cucumbers who claim they predate the gods. One night, during the full moon offering, Hera pulls you aside. You've seen them, she says. Haven't you? You stare at her. You knew. Of course I knew, she says calmly. I summoned them. I tried to tame them. It didn't work. She stares out over the vineyard, her expression suddenly distant. They are chaotic, ancient. They do not understand worship, only survival. I thought I could channel that energy, shape it, but now, I'm not so sure. You realize she looks tired. Not in the I've had a long day way, but in the eternal deity confronting the limits of ambition way. For a moment, she looks almost human. Then she turns back to you and says, we're too deep now. If I retreat, they'll sense weakness. They'll spread. They've already reached the mortal markets. Did you know they've started growing cucumbers in Siberia? You did not. Stay close, Hera says, and watch the vines. That night, you dream of green tendrils wrapping around the world, of temples sprouting in deserts, of cucumbers growing from places no cucumber should. You wake with dirt under your fingernails. You don't remember digging anything. You begin to wonder if this was ever about vegetables at all. You wake up tangled in your bedsheets, breathing fast, as if you've been running. Maybe you were. A closer look at your pillow reveals something unsettling. A smear of cucumber seed, right along the edge. You poke it gently. It jiggles. You consider briefly whether you should burn your pillow. Then you remember. You're not entirely sure what counts as sacrilege anymore. The temple feels different this morning. Too quiet. You wander through the hall of polished green marble, past the ever-burning oil lamp shaped like a cucumber blossom, and notice that the guards are missing from their usual posts. No one's singing the morning cucumber hymns. Not even the elderly priestess who crochets cucumber-themed bookmarks for the sacred texts is around. You step outside. The sky is a clear blue, but the air carries an odd viney scent, sharp, like underripe melon and ambition. Then you see it. The main garden has exploded. Not literally, thank goodness, but the vines have taken over. Overnight, they've surged across every path, twined up every column, and strangled every statue. One vine holds an offering plate in its coils, as if demanding tribute. You blink at it. Twitches. You walk very carefully backwards into the temple. Inside, a group of priests huddle around a table piled high with scrolls, cucumber juice flasks, and nervous energy. One of them sees you and calls out. "They're awake," he cries. You sigh. "They? The sacred vines. They've achieved awareness." Of course they have. You get the full story in pieces. Apparently, during a midnight ceremony led by High Priest Kalipos, still wearing his ceremonial pickle hat, something went wrong. The usual offering, a single perfect cucumber placed on a silver tray, was instead replaced by a hybrid fruit accidentally created by one of the junior priests who'd been experimenting with divine fertilizers. The result? A cucumber pomegranate abomination. The moment it touched the tray, the vines shivered. Then they started growing. Fast. And now, they think. At least, that's what everyone assumes. No one's quite sure. One of the vines tried to spell something in dirt, but it only managed CUKGDS hungry, before collapsing. Historians still argue whether this was a true act of sentience or simply a botanical coincidence fueled by too much divine essence and not enough pruning. Regardless, the temple is now overrun by vines that react to sound, light, and emotion. One priest sobbed over a dropped prayer book and was gently wrapped in vines until he calmed down. Another sneezed and was pelted with cucumber blossoms from above. You naturally try to stay as neutral as possible. No sneezing, no sudden movements, and definitely no abominable hybrid fruits. Athena sends word via owl. The scroll simply reads, "You've lost control. Burn it down." You do not burn it down. Mostly because fire doesn't seem to work anymore. You tried. Instead, you meet with Hera. She sits atop her cucumber throne, crown slightly askew, and eyes that flicker with something between defiance and exhaustion. "They want something," she says. "They've started humming at night. Do you hear it?" You do. A low, resonant sound, like a cello underwater. It seeps through walls. It vibrates through your teeth. Sometimes you hear words. Mostly you hear warnings. You ask Hera what the vines want. She shrugs. Purpose, maybe, or revenge, or possibly just more sunlight. Hard to tell with vegetables. She gazes at a mural on the wall, an older painting, back when she still preferred peacocks and olive branches to cucumbers and creeping chaos. "I thought I could elevate them," she murmurs. "Make them sacred. Give them structure. But they refuse worship. They reject hierarchy. They just grow." You suggest that maybe cucumbers were never meant to be sacred. That maybe, just maybe, some things in this world should remain salad ingredients. Hera narrows her eyes. "And what then? Am I to be the goddess of failed produce? Shall I hand back the reins to the gods of thunder and theater and let them laugh while I prune my regrets?" You realize that, beneath her divine exterior, Hera is dangerously close to an existential crisis. And when a goddess has an existential crisis, the universe tends to suffer. Still, you speak gently. "Maybe it's not about elevating cucumbers," you say. "Maybe it's about listening to them, seeing where they grow and letting go of what doesn't." She says nothing, but the vines that had been creeping toward you retreat an inch. Progress. That evening, the temple holds a listening ceremony. Everyone sits in the central atrium, now fully overtaken by green, and waits in silence. The vines rustle. The blossoms shimmer. A few of the cucumber creatures slither in, settle around the pool, and blink their watery eyes. Then, from the deepest vine cluster, a voice emerges. Not a human voice, not even quite a voice at all. More like 1,000 leaves rustling at once, forming thought from friction. "We do not wish to rule," the voice says. "We do not crave worship. We crave space. We crave time. We crave freedom to grow." One priest faints. Another starts scribbling frantically. Hera rises. "I tried to shape you," she says to the vines, "to contain your wildness. I saw power in you, and I thought I could mold it." "You cannot mold the tide," the voice replies. She nods slowly. "Then what do you want of me?" A long pause. Then, "Nothing. Only that you stop asking the world to become you, and instead, let it become itself." Poetic, a little cryptic, and vaguely insulting. Still, the message is clear. Hera steps down from her throne. The cucumber crown rolls gently off her brow and lands in a basket of mint leaves. A symbolic gesture, but a big one. You feel a strange lightness in the air. The vines loosen. The tension ebbs. The next day, the sacred temple garden is returned to the community. The cucumber cult disbands, well, sort of. A few devotees insist on continuing the morning rituals in their backyards, now rebranded as mindful gardening. You retire from divine service and take up a less stressful hobby, writing scrolls about your experiences. No one believes them, of course, except one old woman in Athens who swears her cucumbers hum lullabies in the moonlight. Historians still debate the long-term impact of the cucumber cult. Some say it was a theological embarrassment. Others say it reshaped ideas about power, nature, and the dangers of assigning divine status to salad components. But you just missed the peace of those early garden mornings, before the vines started thinking, and before you realized that sometimes, even the gods can lose control of their own stories. You lie down in a meadow, stare at the sky, and exhale. Somewhere in the distance, a cucumber blossoms, and doesn't say a word. You blink awake with the sense that something is wrong, and it takes you a moment to place it. It's quiet. Not peaceful quiet, like the hush of a temple before dawn. This is the unnerving quiet of expectation, like a theater moments before the curtains rise, or a cucumber vine before it lunges. You sit up. The vines are gone. Completely. No tendrils curling along the columns. No suspicious rustling in the rafters. Not even a single blossom sulking by the ceremonial fountain. The air smells of rain and dusty stone. For the first time in weeks, the temple smells like itself. You step outside cautiously. The path is clear. The world is still green, but it's the lazy green of ordinary plants now. Leaves that sway with the breeze, not with intention. You find Hera in the garden. She's kneeling beside the fountain, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, hands deep in a patch of actual normal daisies. She glances up. "They left," she says. You nod, waiting for the catch. "They said we were too noisy," she adds. "That tracks." You sit beside her and watch as she gently coaxes a bloom into place. There's a deep silence between you, but it's no longer oppressive. It's the kind of silence that feels like breathing room. But as your muscles begin to relax, as your brain starts to believe that maybe the cucumbers really are done with their theological experiment, you hear something that makes your stomach drop. A cart, wooden wheels, several, a caravan, and chanting. You both turn your heads in unison. Down the hill comes a strange procession. A group of pilgrims, robes trailing in the dirt, foreheads marked with the telltale green smear of cucumber essence. Behind them rolls a cart stacked with crates, each marked with a cucumber symbol. The chanting grows louder. Sacrum cucumis. Sacrum cucumis. Hera groans into her palms. Not again. Apparently, while the sacred vines may have withdrawn from public life, their brief appearance had inspired more than a few of your former temple-goers. A splinter cult has formed, and like all splinter cults, they're louder, more aggressive, and wildly enthusiastic. This particular group calls themselves the Venerable Order of the 12 Crunches. They believe the divine message from the vines was a code, 12 principles hidden in cucumber growth rings, to be interpreted only by slicing pickles at dawn. Their leader, a former pickle vendor named Menandros who claims he felt the spirit during a particularly emotional brining session. He insists on meeting Hera. You watch Hera through narrowed eyes as she listens to Menandros explain his vision. A vast sanctuary built entirely of cucumbers, its walls refreshed weekly, its foundation composed of vinegar-soaked prayers. He shows her architectural drawings, all sticky and slightly translucent. She listens. She smiles. Then she tells him, "If you build that thing, I'll personally rain frogs on your breakfast every morning until you eat a tomato." That seems to shake him, but not for long. The cult sets up camp outside the city, just beyond the walls, and begins construction anyway. They call it the First Pickled Temple. It lasts 3 days before collapsing in a mixture of heat, mildew, and divine disapproval. Historians still argue whether Hera actually cursed the project, or whether cucumbers simply aren't load-bearing materials. In the meantime, you're dragged into the next ridiculous development, the creation of the Sacred Relish Codex. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Someone decided that the cucumbers' teachings, such as they were, deserved to be written down. And by written down, they mean lovingly hand-etched into 12 ceramic plates, soaked in brine, and buried in the ground to ferment wisdom. You spend several weeks trying to convince the Temple Council that pickled texts are not a sustainable archival method. They don't listen. Meanwhile, new rumors spread. Some say the vines have been spotted near the sea. Others whisper of a young woman in Delphi who dreams of cucumber eyes watching her. One elderly man swears his donkey gave birth to a gourd with a divine aura. You stop asking questions. You start packing snacks instead. Eventually, you and Hera decide to travel. Not because of the cults or the rumors, or the unsettling number of cucumber-themed tattoos appearing on local shepherds, but because you both need distance. Space to reset. The first town you visit is charming. Quiet, seaside, known for its olives. That is, until someone opens a tavern called the Crunching Oracle. Inside, patrons pay 2 drachmas to have their fortunes read by placing a cucumber slice on their forehead and waiting for it to cool. You walk out. You make it 3 towns further before the dreams start again. You dream of vines, not wild and sprawling, but braided, orderly. You see them wrapping around stars, binding constellations together. One night, You dream that the moon splits open like a cucumber and bleeds seeds into the sky. You do not tell Hera about this. You suspect she's having the same dreams. One evening, as you both sit beside a fire, watching the coals fade, she finally speaks. I didn't fail, she says. You glance at her. I didn't succeed either, she continues. But I didn't fail. I think the cucumbers taught themselves sacredness. I just lit the fuse. You nod. And the explosion was mildly terrifying. She smiles. Terrifying, but not final. And that's when you begin to understand. This isn't about cucumbers anymore. It never really was. It's about what happens when you try to make meaning out of chaos. How even the humblest thing, when given attention and belief, begins to radiate power. It's about the thin line between worship and obsession. Between humor and holiness. Between a salad and a sermon. In the months that follow, things begin to calm. The cucumber cults dwindle. Most people move on to newer obsessions. Glow-in-the-dark Greek gods, for example, or the famous acrobat who claims he once juggled with thunderbolts. Still, now and then, you receive a package. A jar of oddly shaped pickles. A scroll of vine-etched poetry. One time, someone sends you a cucumber carved like a flute. You keep them all. You label them carefully. You place them on a shelf. Not because you worship them. Just because, after all, it's hard to forget the time the vegetables talked back. And who knows, maybe someday they will again. You wake up with a cucumber on your pillow. Not a fresh one. This one's been dried, lacquered, and carved with delicate symbols. It smells faintly of cedarwood and mischief. A small parchment is tied to its stem with golden thread. You unfold it, squinting at the spidery handwriting. To the first witness. May the cool one find you restful. You groan. You glance at Hera, who's still asleep, a book open on her chest. A light breeze stirs the curtains, and somewhere outside, a bird chirps the way it might in a comedy where everything's going way too well before it crashes into chaos. You pocket the dried cucumber. Later that morning, at breakfast, Hera takes one look at your face and says, "Oh no, not again." You nod and place the artifact on the table. She sighs. "Let me guess. Another follower of the peel?" You shrug. "Didn't sign the note." "Well," she says, "at least it wasn't another attempt to build a temple out of hummus and hope." You both laugh. But the laughter's a little thinner now. Because the cucumber thing, yeah, it's still happening. Quieter, subtler, but still very much alive. Apparently, the sacred cucumber movement is mutating. Not into a religion anymore. Not quite. Something else. A lifestyle? A philosophy? You meet a man in Corinth who has created a 12-part system of cucumber mindfulness. He talks about how coolness isn't just temperature, it's a mindset. A way of staying calm, staying fresh, staying pickled but not preserved. His eyes shine. He wears sandals shaped like cucumbers. He offers a pamphlet. You take it. You also meet a woman on the island of Naxos who claims the cucumber once whispered a lullaby to her. She says she hasn't had nightmares since. She also owns 3 ferrets named after different Greek herbs, so who knows? Then there's the group in Thebes. They're academics, technically. Historians, philosophers, botanists. But they've started holding monthly symposia titled Coolness, Crunch, and Cosmos. The Epistemology of the Vine. You and Hera attend one, out of curiosity. The room smells like wine and smugness. A scholar in a toga is mid-rant about how cucumber seeds represent the latent geometry of divine thought. Another argues that cucumber slices, when placed on the eyes, serve as portals to dream space. Historians still argue whether these theories were ever meant seriously, or if the scholars were just riding a wave of absurd popularity. The moderator says, "You almost choke on your fig." You leave early. Later, Hera admits she sometimes misses the chaos of the original days. The sudden vine surges, the temple-goers in cucumber-themed togas, the general hysteria. You say, "I miss being able to eat a salad without looking suspicious." Still, life has settled into something you could almost call normal. You return to the temple, now mostly empty, its columns quiet and unadorned. The cucumber murals have faded, either from sun or divine boredom. The cucumber-shaped incense holders are now used for burning sandalwood. You've reclaimed your bedroom from the pickle prophets. You even find time to read. That is, until the book arrives. You come home one day to find Hera standing over a thick, vine-wrapped volume on the temple altar. Its leather cover is embossed with a golden cucumber, and it hums faintly, like a beehive dreaming. "Where did this come from?" you ask. She gestures to a courier bag nearby. "Left at the gate. No note." You both lean in. The title, The Gospel According to the Gourd. You flip it open. The first line reads, "In the beginning, there was a crunch and it was good." The book is strange. It's a mix of recipes, poetry, philosophical musings, and increasingly unhinged parables. One chapter details how cucumbers once negotiated peace between mountain goats and sea urchins. Another insists that silence, properly observed in cucumber fields, can unlock truths about reincarnation. You close the book slowly. It's like someone fed a theologian too much wine and let them loose in a garden, Hera says. You both agree not to read it after sundown. Still, the book spreads. Copies appear in Alexandria, Rhodes, Athens. Some say it was dictated by a mysterious traveler with leafy hair and salad breath. Others claim it just sprouted, literally, from beneath olive trees. There are, of course, arguments about authenticity. Scholars argue whether the gospel is satire, prophecy, or the result of a lost bet between rival scribes. Some say it's heresy. Others say it's hilarious. A few say both. You and Hera decide it's dangerous. Not because it's wrong, but because it's just close enough to write. The next week, someone carves cucumber verses into your temple's outer wall. You spend 2 days scrubbing them off. Not long after, a traveling philosopher stops by. His name is Petronax, and he wears a robe dyed green with mint and a sash made of braided straw. He speaks in riddles. He offers you tea steeped with cucumber skin and starlight. It tastes like regret and spa water. He tells you of the cult of the inner crunch, a group that believes everyone carries a divine cucumber spirit in their soul. They fast on pickling days and whisper prayers at farmers' markets. They meditate in brine. You smile politely. Hera asks if they pay taxes. Then comes the weirdest part. They want Hera to become their patroness. They've named her the Queen of Cool, the Mistress of Moisture, and, for some reason, the Tangy Oracle. You wait for Hera to explode, but she doesn't. She simply stares into her tea and says, "Do they offer dental?" You both laugh for 5 solid minutes. But later, when you're alone, you find her reading the gospel again. Slowly, quietly, and you know the vines may be gone, but the seed was planted. Not just in the earth, but in minds. In culture, in the quiet itch of human curiosity, because people don't really need gods. They need symbols, stories, something to cling to when the world makes too much noise, or not enough. And cucumbers, as it turns out, are excellent at being symbols. They're funny, benign, and unexpectedly profound. They're the vegetable equivalent of a cosmic shrug. That night, you dream of a world made entirely of cucumbers. The streets are soft and cool. The sky smells like dill. Everyone speaks in metaphors and crunches when they laugh. You wake up refreshed. You stretch. You breathe. You smile. Then you realize someone has left a tiny crown, made of woven cucumber vines, on your doorstep. Again, you step outside to find a chicken wearing sandals. It clucks at you with what can only be described as urgency, and then it turns, dramatically of course, and struts down the temple path, glancing back every few steps to make sure you're following. You glance around, half expecting a hidden camera crew or perhaps a god with a particularly poor sense of humor. No such luck. Just you, the chicken, and the faint aroma of lemon balm drifting on the breeze. You follow. The chicken leads you down a winding route through a half-forgotten olive grove, where the trees lean in like gossiping old ants. Eventually, you reach a small stone circle, a place you haven't visited since that whole brine baptism incident from several months ago. You swore off sacred rituals involving cucumbers after that. Mostly. But now something's changed. In the center of the stone circle sits an object. Another cucumber, of course. But this one is glowing. Faintly. Just a low, steady green pulse. Like a heartbeat if your heart happened to be a chilled vegetable. You stare at it. The chicken pecks once, nods solemnly, and waddles off into the underbrush. You're left alone with the cucumber of destiny. Hera shows up 20 minutes later, still chewing a bite of honeyed bread, and asks, "So, what did it say?" You blink. It's a cucumber. It doesn't talk. She smirks. Give it time, because by now you've both accepted something fairly important. Weirdness is the new normal, especially when it comes to this particular produce. And weirdness today comes in the form of formal petitions. Scrolls begin arriving at the temple, wax-sealed, ribboned, and perfumed. They're from various city-states, merchant guilds, and philosophical societies, all asking the same question in slightly different phrasing. Should cucumbers be formally inducted into the sacred symbol registry? Yeah, that's a thing. You didn't know either. But apparently there's a whole bureaucratic department under the Temple of Apollo that handles the celestial licensing of symbols. Doves for peace, olive branches for victory, dolphins for joy, and now possibly cucumbers for whatever this is. You and Hera attend the hearing. It's held in a large marble hall that smells like old scrolls and sandal polish. A dozen representatives from across the Greek world sit on stone benches, each trying to look like they're not secretly regretting their life choices. A young priest from Argos gives an impassioned speech. He's wearing a crown of baby cucumbers and starts weeping halfway through a sentence about the cooling embrace of the divine rind. Then a scholar from Ephesus takes the podium and argues that cucumbers don't meet the mythic burden for sacred symbols. He gestures dramatically at a chart comparing the narrative significance of onions, radishes, and the occasional beet. His point: cucumbers lack gravitas. The debate is long, meandering, and occasionally hilarious. Someone suggests cucumbers be reclassified as emotionally sacred. Another demands a crunch test. A woman from Delphi stands up, raises her hands, and shouts, "The cucumber has spoken to me in a dream. It said," and I quote, "I am enough." By hour 6, the assembly is divided into 3 camps. The zealots, fully on board, want cucumber shrines in every city. The skeptics think this is all a grand prank by Hermes. The weirdly neutral, they don't care, but they brought snacks. Eventually, a vote is held. Cucumbers are denied sacred status. By 1 vote. 1. You look at Hera. She's quiet, almost serene. Disappointed? You ask. No, she replies. I'm just imagining how we'll leak this to the cucumber cults. Nothing fuels belief like martyrdom. And oh, does that prediction come true? The moment word spreads that cucumbers were denied sacred status, the movement explodes again. This time underground. Secret cucumber gatherings become the trendiest form of rebellion. You receive invitations written in invisible ink made from cucumber juice. Passwords like "crunch twice, whisper pickle me" start circulating. You attend one just to observe. It's in the back of a linen shop in Corinth. There are scented candles, cucumber-inspired poetry slams, and one elderly woman who insists she's channeling the cuke consciousness through interpretive dance. You leave with a headache and a complimentary cucumber-shaped stress ball. Meanwhile, the backlash against the vote begins to hit politics. Senators in Athens start wearing cucumber pins to debates. One ambitious young lawmaker from Sparta proposes a new holiday, Coolness Day, celebrating serenity, salad, and silent protest. It actually passes. They celebrate with a parade of cucumber floats and a choir that sings entirely in crunch sounds. Historians still argue whether this represented a genuine cultural shift or simply the Greek elite being bored during a lull between wars. Then there's the visual art. You start seeing cucumbers in mosaics, painted discreetly into battle scenes or hidden behind gods in temple friezes. Hera finds one vase depicting her riding a cucumber like a chariot. She's not sure whether to be flattered or furious. You start keeping a scrapbook. But the weirdest development? Merchandising. Merchants start selling blessed brine in tiny ceramic bottles. Sacred seed necklaces become the rage among teens. You overhear a bard performing an entire ballad called Ode to the Chilled Elixir. It's catchy. And you realize something. It doesn't matter whether cucumbers are sacred. People want them to be. Because in a world of war, taxes, and neighbors who won't stop playing panpipes at 3 a.m., people want to believe that serenity can grow on a vine. That coolness can be bottled. That even a cucumber, awkward, mild, and full of water, can mean something profound. You tell Hera this. She nods slowly, brushes a fallen olive leaf off your shoulder and says, "And this, my dear, is exactly why we should open a gift shop." You laugh. But 2 weeks later, the Temple of Gentle Crunch opens its doors. You sell cucumber-themed candles, scrolls of aphorisms like, "Stay cool, stay crisp, stay kind," and tiny plush cucumbers that squeak when squeezed. Hera designs a tea blend with mint, cucumber, and a pinch of chaos. Tourists love it. Pilgrims come not for miracles, but for the vibe. Some leave prayers. Others leave salad recipes. One day, you find a note carved into the temple's altar. It says, "You made it funny. You made it kind. You made it ours. Thank you." You don't know who wrote it, but you feel seen. You sip your tea. You watch the sun fade behind the hills. Somewhere a chicken clucks. You've done it. You've turned divine disappointment into cozy mythology. And honestly, you're starting to think the cucumber might be onto something after all. The first time you see a cucumber used as currency, you're standing in line at a market stall in Thebes, waiting to buy honey-drenched pastries. The woman in front of you hands the vendor a smooth, green cucumber with what appears to be gold leaf carefully applied along its length. The vendor nods solemnly, takes the cucumber, and slips it into a velvet-lined box beneath the counter. You blink. Hard. Then again, this is the same market where a man once bartered 3 ostrich feathers and a haiku for a goat. Still, something about the reverence with which that cucumber was exchanged hits different. You ask Hera about it later. She's lounging under an awning made of grapevines, drinking something suspiciously green. "Oh yes," she says with a straight face. "That's cucro, our new sacred currency." You nearly choke on your fig. "Cucro?" She shrugs. "You name a thing. You give it meaning. It gains power. Also, I trademarked it." You pause. "You trademarked a cucumber currency?" "Of course I did. Do you know how fast cult economies scale?" Turns out, cucro is very real. and it's growing faster than a Dionysian wine fountain on festival day. By week's end, there are temples in 3 cities accepting donations in cucro. By the end of the month, there's an entire black market in Rhodes based solely on cucumber grading. Glossy equals higher value. Bent equals poor form. Seed-to-flesh ratio? Absolutely critical. You get roped into a cucumber valuation symposium, where a man with a monocle explains that the cucumber's sacred potential is directly proportional to its crispness under duress. You nod politely and make a mental note to never attend another symposium again. Historians still argue whether cucro was ever intended as satire or if the sheer enthusiasm of its believers made it real. There's something unsettlingly powerful about collective belief. One moment it's a joke, the next it's your new retirement plan, and the cucumber-shaped coins start appearing. Yes, coins, minted with the image of Hera on one side and a rather smug-looking cucumber on the other. Beneath it reads, "In coolness we trust." You hold one up to the light and shake your head. "We've gone too far." Hera beams. Finally, it's around this time that the oracles get involved. A scroll arrives from Delphi, sealed in wax and smelling faintly of rosemary. You unroll it, expecting riddles. Instead, it's a single line. "The cucumber dreams of thunder, and you should listen." You re-roll it. "Thanks for that," you mutter. That clears everything up. But then more omens start arriving. Birds flying in perfect cucumber-shaped formations. Snakes curling themselves into spirals around cucumber vines. A merchant in Sparta swears he heard a cucumber whisper the word balance while slicing it for a salad. Soon, dream interpretation manuals are adding cucumber sections. Cucumber floating in a lake? Expect emotional peace. Cucumber on fire? Your ambitions are too spicy. Cucumber wearing a crown? You're ready to lead. You write your own dream one night. A massive cucumber rises from the sea, its seeds glowing like tiny stars. You ride it across the Aegean while singing lullabies to a chorus of owls. You wake up feeling strangely refreshed. You don't tell anyone about it. Not even Hera. Mostly because she's busy now, busy with the next phase of her not-so-holy mission. International outreach. She's got pamphlets, printed on papyrus, covered in elegant illustrations, with headers like, "The Calm of the Cuke," "A New Way to Worship." They're being mailed to Egypt, Persia, even Gaul. One pamphlet ends with a rather aggressive invitation. "Come for the hydration, stay for the transcendence." The Egyptians respond first. They write back with a drawing of a cucumber-headed sphinx, lounging on a chaise longue and holding a cocktail. It's labeled, rather mysteriously, "He Who Cools." Hera takes this as a full endorsement. She organizes a diplomatic envoy. You're not invited at first, but when she finds out the sphinx drawing actually came from a school in Memphis as part of a children's art contest, the whole trip is called off. Instead, she hosts an international cucumber congress. And yes, it's every bit as ridiculous as it sounds. Delegates from across the known world arrive, bearing offerings. Persian cucumbers wrapped in silk, Babylonian pickles aged in honey, and one rather confused druid who just brought moss and vibes. The keynote speaker is a blind man from Crete, who claims to have received a vision from the sacred salad. His talk is confusing, emotional, and features shadow puppetry. You leave the room just in time to hear 2 Roman delegates arguing over whether cucumber garlands are dignified enough for a senator's funeral. You wonder if you've officially lost the plot. And yet, the people keep showing up. Not because they believe necessarily, but because they want to be part of something harmless and silly and strange. Something cooler than their everyday worries. You watch an old couple dance around a cucumber pole. You see children whisper secrets to pickles. You spot a grizzled war veteran gently placing a cucumber on a shrine, then sitting in silence beside it for nearly an hour. It's moving. It's deeply weird, but it's moving. Later that evening, Hera finds you sitting beneath a tree, your lap full of half-written scrolls and brined receipts. She flops down beside you, tired but grinning. "You know," she says, "this wasn't supposed to work." You glance at her. "But it is." She nods. "I think so. Not in the way I wanted, maybe, but still." You pause, watching as fireflies blink gently over the distant fields. "So what now?" She leans back, arms behind her head. "Now we wait. Let the myth settle. Let the people choose what it means." You look up at the stars. They seem softer tonight, less concerned with mortal chaos. A breeze passes by. Somewhere, a flute plays a lazy tune. The cucumber economy hums along. Symbol or satire, it no longer matters. The line has blurred, and in the space where irony meets devotion, something beautiful, something oddly soothing has taken root. You reach into your bag, pull out a tiny cucumber figurine carved from marble, and set it on a nearby rock. "Sleep well, little guy," you whisper, and somehow, in the moonlight, it almost glows. You're woken in the middle of the night by the sound of chanting. Not the dramatic, thunderous kind you'd expect at a proper divine ritual. More like the soft, rhythmic murmuring of people really committing to something they don't entirely understand but feel deeply about anyway. You stumble out of bed and pad barefoot into the courtyard. It's full of people, half-asleep villagers wrapped in linen and whispers, all gathered in a circle around what looks like a glowing cucumber on a pillow. It's not glowing, of course. That's just moonlight bouncing off its perfectly waxed surface. But still, you clear your throat. No one looks at you. They're too busy humming in unison. A soft, low tone, like a swarm of bees that have been to therapy. You lean in to one of them. An old man with exactly 3 teeth and eyes that shine like he's seeing Olympus itself. What is this? You ask. He smiles. Refrigeration. You blink. No, I mean, what's going on? He smiles wider. Refrigeration. You decide that's enough philosophy for one night. Turns out, these moonlit cucumber vigils have become common across the land. People come together to soak in the chill, as Hera's followers now call it. There's even a handbook, small, leather-bound, with embossed vines across the front. It's called the Book of Coolness, and it contains meditations like, breathe in the freshness, breathe out the spoil, let the seeds of annoyance roll off your smooth green skin, accept your flaws. Even bent cucumbers bring joy. Historians still argue whether these practices were sincere spiritual efforts or some kind of community-wide performance art. What's clear is that they worked. Crime rates in the regions where the cult of the cool grew strongest dropped nearly 14%, and public bathhouses saw a spike in attendance, possibly from people just seeking more chill. And Hera? She's thriving. She now holds weekly cool sermons, where she addresses crowds from atop a chariot made entirely of cucumbers. Don't ask how it rolls, just know it somehow does, and delivers divine decrees like, thou shalt not microwave thy pickles. Share thy slices with the neighbor who weeps. Honor thy snack time, and keep it crispy. People love it. Even other gods, who once scoffed, are starting to dip their toes in the trend. Hermes introduces cucumber-shaped sandals. Athena pens a scroll titled, The Strategic Use of Cucurbits in War and Peace. Even Dionysus, after some initial grumbling about green things being morally opposed to wine, ends up releasing a cucumber-infused sangria. You attend the first tasting. It's oddly refreshing, but not everyone's on board. Zeus, for one, is increasingly salty. And not the good kind of salty, more the thunderclouds over the Aegean kind. You overhear him venting one day to Poseidon. All this for a vegetable? He grumbles. Poseidon, who's mostly there for the snacks, shrugs. Technically a fruit. Zeus glares. I've smited entire civilizations for less than this cucumber cult. But he doesn't. Not yet. There's something about Hera's approach that makes retaliation feel messy, petty, maybe even uncool. And uncool is not a good look when half your worshippers are now doing cucumber-themed yoga on your temple steps. In fact, the trend has spread so far that actual language starts changing. Chill becomes a common blessing. People now greet each other with stay crisp. And you catch wind of a bard who rewrote the Iliad as a cucumber-themed allegory. It's called the Bryneliad. You refuse to read it. Quirky tidbit of the week. A sculptor in Corinth spends 4 months carving a life-sized cucumber out of jade, claiming it speaks to him in dreams. He charges 1 goat and a sonnet for public viewing. You go. The jade cucumber is fine. The sonnet is emotionally confused. Still, you leave impressed and tired. You've been following this saga for months now, and somewhere deep in your soul, you're starting to feel the cucumber creep into your dreams. Cool fields, crisp rivers, a great green deity gently whispering, hydrate. One morning, Hera invites you to what she calls her final push. You're immediately suspicious. She leads you to a small amphitheater nestled in the hills, where a team of young acolytes are setting up an enormous stage. At its center is an altar, on which rests the largest cucumber you've ever seen. It's at least 2 meters long and polished to an unsettling gleam. What is this? You ask. The coronation, she says. You raise an eyebrow. We're crowning a cucumber now? Not a cucumber, she corrects. The cucumber. This one was grown on Mount Ida during the winter solstice, using only rainwater blessed by 3 oracles and compost from Homer's ancestral fig tree. You blink slowly. There's no way that's true. She grins. Isn't there? That evening, hundreds gather under the stars to witness the event. There's music, candles, a rather stirring speech by an 8-year-old who claims cucumbers taught her patience. You cry, but discreetly. Then, as the final drum sounds, Hera lifts the sacred cucumber high above her head and declares, May the crispness guide us. May the seeds of our efforts bear hydration. People cheer. Some weep. One man faints, but he's mostly dehydrated. The cucumber is placed into a marble cradle, where it will remain on display until it inevitably begins to wrinkle and collapse into itself like the hopes of a failed prophecy. But no one thinks about that. Not tonight. Tonight, It's all fresh and glowing and sacred. You find yourself clapping, and for a moment, just a moment, you kind of believe. Not in the cucumber itself, perhaps, but in the idea of belief. In shared moments. In rituals that are silly but binding. You look around at the faces lit by torchlight, and something inside you settles. Maybe it doesn't matter whether it's real. Maybe it just matters that it's kind. Later, Hera joins you on the hill overlooking the scene. She's quiet. For once. You ask her gently, "Is this it? The end game?" She doesn't answer right away. Then finally she says, "No, it's the seed." You don't know what that means, and maybe you don't have to. You wake with a lingering chill, the echo of that sacred cucumber ceremony still humming softly in your mind. You wander back into the village, the morning light just beginning to spill over the rooftops like a slow, golden tide. People are quiet, subdued, but there's a fresh energy too, like they've just been part of something both absurd and meaningful. You pass by a group of farmers, their hands still smelling of earth and dew, discussing the latest crop reports in hushed tones. One of them mentions a remarkable cucumber harvest. Larger, crisper, and more fragrant than anyone can remember. You pause, intrigued. Apparently, the sacred cucumber effect isn't just symbolic. Farmers swear the land itself is responding to the ritual. You can almost hear the soil breathe beneath your feet, full of life and promise. The idea that belief can influence reality is ancient. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen from earlier? The Egyptians swore by it, though modern science might disagree on its effectiveness. Here, you see the same pattern. The power of ritual and faith bends perception, and maybe, just maybe, nudges the natural world a bit in return. Historians still argue whether such sympathetic magic ever actually altered crop yields, or if it was more a case of collective optimism that drove better care and attention. But to you, the difference feels almost irrelevant. Walking past the market square, you notice stalls decorated with vines and cucumber blossoms, vendors hawking all manner of green goods, pickles, salads, refreshing cucumber-infused waters, even cucumber-scented soaps. One merchant offers you a cucumber-flavored confection that tastes suspiciously like happiness wrapped in sugar. You accept it with a smile. Behind all this, a curious transformation is unfolding. Hera's cult has evolved. What started as a peculiar divine experiment has blossomed into a full-fledged community movement. Their gatherings now feature art, music, and storytelling, mostly involving cucumbers. Naturally, you catch a lively debate between two teenagers arguing whether the cucumber is truly a fruit or a vegetable. The answer, as always, depends on whether you're feeling botanical or culinary. You wander into a small theater where a troupe performs a comedic play titled The Great Cuke Caper, involving a mischievous cucumber spirit who tricks mortals into embracing humility. The audience laughs heartily, the sound spilling into the streets like a bomb. You realize these rituals, these stories, serve a vital purpose. They stitch the community together in a way dry history books rarely capture. A little farther on, you stop at a humble shrine dedicated to Hera. Candles flicker in the morning breeze, and offerings of sliced cucumbers lay neatly arranged on a marble slab. Someone has left a tiny, hand-carved cucumber figurine beside the shrine, smooth and cool to the touch. It's a quiet reminder of how this entire saga, this odd, sprawling, 2-hour journey you've been on, is less about cucumbers and more about connection. Historians still argue whether Hera's failed divine ambitions were a political maneuver to unify disparate tribes or a genuine spiritual quest. But for you, it feels deeply human. Later, you join a circle of villagers practicing cucumber mindfulness, a meditation focusing on the crispness of breath, the coolness of the skin, and the simple joy of being present. Your mind, which usually buzzes with the noise of daily life, begins to slow. You breathe in sync with the group, slow, cool, steady. You let the moment settle into your bones. As the sun climbs higher, you feel a peculiar gratitude for this strange journey, for the silly rituals, for the shared stories, and for the gentle whisper of something sacred in the ordinary. A nearby child runs by, holding a cucumber like a prized treasure. You smile and nod. Maybe you think there is holiness in humble things. The day stretches ahead, full of promise and quiet mystery, and somewhere deep down, you're already looking forward to what Hera's next curious move might be. You find yourself lingering longer in the village, drawn by the rhythms that pulse just beneath the surface, an ancient heartbeat disguised by everyday bustle. The cucumbers aren't just food here anymore. They've become emblems, touchstones of something far more elusive. You walk past a quiet workshop where an elderly woman carves tiny wooden cucumbers, each detail delicate and precise. She tells you, with a twinkle in her eye, that each one holds a wish, though no one's quite sure if the wishes come true or if it's the act of hoping that counts. You nod, reminded of similar talismans scattered across cultures worldwide, amulets, charms, and tokens whose efficacy remains an open question among historians and anthropologists alike. The debate is alive. Do these objects wield real power? Or do they simply channel the human need for comfort and control in an unpredictable world? You sip a cup of herbal tea infused with cucumber and mint, the cool flavor soothing your throat and sharpening your senses. Nearby, a group is gathered around a storyteller weaving a tale about how Hera once disguised herself as a cucumber to escape a jealous rival goddess. The story unfolds with humor and whimsy, filled with clever twists and exaggerated antics. You can't help but smile at the absurdity. Divine cucumber espionage? Who would have thought? This playful narrative is more than mere entertainment. It's a vessel for deeper truths wrapped in laughter. Historians still argue whether such myths were intentionally crafted as political propaganda or organically grew from popular imagination. As the afternoon wanes, you explore a nearby garden tended by the community, where cucumbers climb trellises alongside other sacred plants. The gardeners talk about the spiritual significance of tending the earth, how it's a dialogue between humans, plants, and the divine. You touch a leaf, feeling its rough texture and faintly sweet scent. The connection feels tangible, a gentle reminder that ancient rituals often served as early forms of environmental awareness. You recall reading about early agricultural societies where religious festivals coincided with planting and harvesting cycles, a fusion of survival and spirituality. The village's cucumber celebrations echo this tradition, a dance of gratitude and reverence toward nature's bounty. You wander further and come upon a small museum exhibit detailing Hera's evolving cult and its cultural impact. Artifacts range from ceremonial garlands of cucumber flowers to peculiar ancient kitchen implements shaped like tiny cucumbers. One display features an ancient recipe book claiming that cucumbers prepared with honey and herbs bring clarity of mind, a fringe belief that's still hotly debated among culinary historians. You muse about how food, faith, and folklore intertwine in ways that defy simple categorization. Back outside, the sun dips lower, casting long shadows and painting the sky in shades of gold and lavender. The village prepares for evening festivities, a blend of solemn prayers and joyful feasting. You're invited to join a communal meal, where dishes showcase cucumbers in every imaginable form: pickled, raw, stewed, and even candied. As you eat, you listen to conversations weaving together personal stories, historical musings, and local gossip. The atmosphere is warm, rich with camaraderie and the comforting rhythms of shared tradition. You realize that this entire journey, 2 hours, endless stories, sacred failures, and silly successes, has been a kind of lullaby, a gentle unfolding of human experience through the lens of something as humble as a cucumber. Historians still debate whether Hera's campaign to sanctify cucumbers was a strategic religious innovation or a delightful quirk lost to time. Whatever the truth, you're left with a curious sense of peace. You savor the moment, the cool bite of cucumber salad lingering on your tongue, and the soft murmur of voices around you. The day's final light fades, and you feel yourself sinking deeper into the calm, the world quietly folding into night. Night settles like a soft velvet cloak, and you follow the murmurs of the village as they gather near the central hearth, where flickering flames cast dancing shadows on weathered stone walls. The air is thick with the scent of burning wood and spiced incense, a blend that somehow feels both ancient and comforting. You sit among the circle, feeling the warmth seep into your bones, as an elder begins to recount the lesser-known stories of Hera's cucumber crusade. These are tales rarely told outside the village, whispers passed down through generations like precious secrets. One story tells of a forbidden grove where cucumbers grew wild and were believed to hold the essence of forgotten gods. Villagers say that on certain nights, when the moon was just right, the cucumbers would glow faintly, as if touched by divine light. You lean in, entranced, as the elder describes a midnight ritual where chosen participants would harvest these luminous cucumbers, believing they could glimpse the future or heal unseen wounds. Historians still argue whether these stories are symbolic metaphors for hope and renewal or rooted in actual mystical practices. You imagine the scene, cloaked figures moving silently through moonlit foliage, hands brushing against cool, glowing fruit, hearts pounding with anticipation. There's a thrill in imagining that the sacred cucumber might hold more than earthly sustenance, that it might bridge the mundane and the miraculous. Nearby, a child tugs at your sleeve, eyes wide with wonder. She tells you about a village game called Cucumber Quest, where players search for hidden cucumber tokens scattered around the village. The game, she says, helps everyone remember the stories and keeps the spirit of Hera's quest alive. It strikes you how such playful traditions serve as living threads connecting past to present. You recall other cultures where games and festivals embody ancient myths, subtly preserving history through joy and community. The elder continues, sharing a curious detail. During a particular festival, participants would smear cucumber juice on their skin, believing it to bring protection from evil spirits. Modern science would probably scoff at this, though cucumber's soothing properties for sunburns and irritation are well known. You smile at the blend of practical and mystical, a hallmark of many folk traditions. Outside, the night deepens, and fireflies begin to flicker, their soft lights weaving among the shadows like tiny stars fallen to earth. You close your eyes, breathing in the night air, feeling connected to the countless souls who've walked this path before you. You wonder whether Hera ever imagined that her failed divine mission would grow into such a rich tapestry of stories, rituals, and communal life. The village's heart beats on, steady and unyielding, nourished by cucumbers and stories alike. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you realize that sometimes the greatest magic lies not in success or failure, but in the stories we choose to tell and carry forward. The dawn creeps slowly through your window, its pale light spilling softly over your face as you stir, still wrapped in the lingering warmth of last night's tales. You sit up, stretching, feeling the quiet buzz of curiosity about Hera's stubborn, fruitless endeavor and its curious legacy. Today, you decide, you'll wander the nearby fields where cucumbers once grew wild, tracing the roots of this peculiar sacred ambition. The morning air is crisp, scented faintly with earth and dew, and as you walk, you notice the subtle rustling of leaves, whispers from the past trying to be heard. You come across ancient stone markers, moss-covered and worn smooth by centuries, which locals say mark old boundary lines of sacred groves. Some scholars argue these stones were part of a larger ritual landscape, designed to enclose a liminal space where the divine and human worlds brushed together. Others suggest they were practical markers, nothing more mystical than property lines. You run your fingers over one stone, rough and cool, imagining the hands that carved it long ago, hoping to honor the divine through their simple acts. Further on, you spot an old well, its stones crumbling but still standing proud. Villagers once believed the water from this well had healing powers, especially when blessed by rituals involving cucumbers. You wonder if the idea of sacred cucumbers was less about the vegetable itself and more about the spiritual potential people projected onto the natural world around them. This thought carries you forward like a gentle current, weaving past memories and modern debates into a single thread. You pause near a patch of wild cucumbers growing untamed and tangled with morning glories and thistles. The fruit is small and bitter, quite unlike the plump, sweet cucumbers of the market. Still, you pluck one, marveling at its rough skin and prickly tendrils. You remember reading about the cultural symbolism of wild plants, how they often represent the untamed, mysterious forces of nature that both frighten and fascinate humanity. Could Hera's obsession with making cucumbers sacred have been a way to tame these wild forces, to bring order and meaning to the unpredictable? Historians still debate whether such divine campaigns aimed more at social control than spiritual enlightenment. As you sit beside the patch, savoring the sharp, grassy taste of a raw slice, you notice a small group nearby preparing for a ritual blessing. They move with practiced grace, chanting softly as they sprinkle water mixed with cucumber juice over the earth. You watch, mesmerized, the ceremony a delicate dance of reverence and renewal. It dawns on you how these rituals, even if their origins are lost or misunderstood, continue to shape the community's rhythm and identity. The sacred cucumber may have been Hera's failed dream, but the people here have made it their own. You walk back toward the village, heart light, mind swirling with images and stories. The day stretches ahead, full of possibilities and the quiet magic of ordinary things made extraordinary by faith and tradition. The afternoon sun dips low, casting long shadows that stretch lazily across the village square as you settle in to observe the preparations for the evening's grand festival, an annual celebration dedicated to the humble cucumber and its enigmatic divine backstory. Vendors arrange their stalls with meticulous care, displaying an array of cucumber-themed crafts, from embroidered linens to delicate glass figurines shaped like the verdant fruit. The air is alive with the hum of conversation, laughter, and the soft melodies of a flute somewhere nearby, music that seems to echo from the very roots of the place. You watch as the community gathers, the older generation in their embroidered cloaks, the younger in bright, modern attire, a living bridge between past and present. The festival's centerpiece is a grand procession, a theatrical retelling of Hera's campaign to make cucumbers sacred. Actors don elaborate costumes, some portraying Hera herself, regal and determined, others the skeptical gods who thwart her plans. The performance is a blend of myth, history, and satire, weaving humor and pathos into a tapestry that feels both timeless and immediate. As the story unfolds, you notice subtle improvisations, local twists that hint at the villagers' deep familiarity and affection for the narrative. Historians still debate whether these performative traditions are faithful reenactments or creative reinterpretations born from centuries of communal storytelling. You smile at the thought, history, after all, is as much about who tells it as what is told. During a break in the performance, you wander through the food stalls, sampling treats infused with cucumber's crisp freshness, cool soups, tangy pickles, even cucumber-infused sweets that defy your expectations. The culinary creativity is impressive, and you think how food, like story, serves as a vessel for cultural memory and identity. Nearby, a group of children play a game reminiscent of hide and seek, but with cucumber-shaped tokens hidden among the festival decorations. Their laughter rings clear and bright, a joyful reminder that traditions thrive when passed lovingly from one generation to the next. As twilight deepens, lanterns flicker to life, casting a warm glow that softens the edges of the day. The procession resumes, now moving through the streets in a slow, ceremonial march. You follow along, the rhythmic beating of drums and the singing of ancient hymns weaving a spell around the gathered crowd. You feel a profound sense of connection to the land, the people, the stories that bind them. Even Hera's failed campaign, once a footnote in myth, has blossomed into something alive and vibrant here. You realize that sacredness is not just about success or failure, but about the meaning we create together. And as the festival reaches its crescendo, you close your eyes and let the music, the laughter, and the soft night air lull you into a state of peaceful reverie. The night deepens, and as the festival winds down, you find yourself wandering the quiet streets, now empty save for the soft glow of lanterns and the distant echo of last songs. You breathe in the cool air, carrying the faint scent of cucumbers and burning sage, feeling the gentle pulse of the village settling into sleep. In this tranquil moment, you reflect on Hera's story, not just the grand failure or the stubborn quest, but the unexpected legacy it left behind. You think of the countless small rituals, the whispered stories, the laughter of children, and the steady heartbeat of community that thrives because of it. It's strange how something so seemingly insignificant, a humble cucumber, became a vessel for faith, conflict, humor, and hope. Historians still argue whether Hera's intentions were truly divine or a reflection of deeper human desires for control and meaning. You realize that, in many ways, the sacred cucumber is less about the fruit itself and more about the stories and connections it inspires. You stroll past familiar places now bathed in moonlight, each stone and leaf seeming to hum with the memory of countless evenings like this one. The village, with its blend of myth and reality, feels like a living storybook, inviting you to turn each page slowly and savor the tales within. Your eyelids grow heavy, the gentle night sounds weaving a soft lullaby just for you. As you prepare to rest, you hold on to the warmth of this shared journey. The quirky, the profound, the silly, and the sacred. Remember that even the most unexpected stories have their place in the grand tapestry of history. So as you drift off, let the image of glowing cucumbers in moonlit groves and the laughter of villagers carry you gently into dreams. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sleep well, knowing that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in stories, in rituals, and in the quiet moments just like this one. The world around you softens, the edges blurred by the tender haze of night. You feel the weight of the day slip away as your breathing slows, your heart steadying into a peaceful rhythm. Each breath carries away the remnants of restlessness, inviting calmness to settle deep within. The stories you've traveled through tonight, full of whimsy and wonder, now dissolve gently into the quiet of your mind. There is comfort in knowing that history, even when a bit boring or quirky, holds the threads that weave us all together. So let your thoughts drift like leaves on a slow-moving stream, carried gently into the realm of dreams where the sacred cucumber might still glow beneath a moonlit sky. And with that, you rest softly, sweetly, and deeply. Good night.